All right, let's see what happens here. We got everything live. All right, we're good. Mac 10, well, first to the mic, Blue Blood 414. Good afternoon, or better yet, good evening, folks. As you can see, this one is going to be titled The Future of the Supreme Court. Hey, PNW Glow, we're going to have some fun. Good evening, PNW. What them Trumpsters are crying about? Well, they're not crying in this case, Mac 10. They're actually celebrating. They're celebrating what looks like the Supreme Court contemplating banning abortion and banning abortion nationwide potentially. So they're not crying at this point, but we're going to be talking about the potential other I guess you'd say overturning of wow, I'm kind of mincing my words here, but Mike 10 said, I need 11,872 votes. Oh, shout out to the state of Georgia. We're going to be talking about the potential that the Supreme Court overturns other legislation or other rulings that have already been determined. That's what we're looking at, reversing former precedents. What are the chances that that may happen? That's what we're going to be talking about. Political pendulum. Like the name, 50 years of obsession to control women will not stop there. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about. Do you guys believe, is this a states' rights ploy to give the states their individual rights to make their individual choices? Or do you believe this is an attempt to, as what political pendulum is saying, to reverse a lot of accomplishments, progressive accomplishments of this country and roll things back a bit? How do you feel about that? Ronnie Benavides, the government just wants to control everyone. That's an interesting take. You hear that regardless of who's in office, whether it's the left or the right. You hear folks saying that the government just wants to tell us what to do. They haven't overturned anything. It was a rumor leaked on a preliminary vote. Beef 1981, this is not a rumor. This is essentially them writing why they ruled a certain way before releasing the ruling. It was a draft, in other words. So it looks fairly apparent that they do, or at least did, intend to reverse Roe versus Wade, and this information is leaked out. The Supreme Court is suggesting that they want to find out who leaked the documents and hold them accountable. They're not suggesting what you are suggesting, whereas it was a rumor. The Supreme Court is not even saying that. It states rights ploy as a way to roll back rights. Political pendulum, I'm in the same camp as you. I do believe that this is a ploy to roll back states' rights, or better yet, roll back Roe versus Wade. I do believe that. Defund the police. Man of Steel, I think that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Fortunately, even the Liberal Party realized that defunding the police is a bad idea. It should be a state's decision. Let me go into something. Oh wow, the callers are already here. So give me a second. I believe I see you out there, Harris Jordan. Give me a quick second. Massive tribunals happening in mainstream media not reporting. What massive tribunals in regards to what? In 2,000 mules is in the comments. I'll be right here when Trump runs off with all these jokers' money. I really hope Trump is not going to do that. I really hope that. I really hope that if that man has led his constituents, his voters, his supporters to believe he will be the one that corrects the incorrect path that they believe we're on right now, he will be the man in 2024 that steps up and corrects that. I hope he does not run off with the money, is what you're saying. You enjoy being yet another black sucker for the Democrats. Cosmo49. A black sucker how? By pointing out flaws in the Liberal Party, which I do every night? By pointing out flaws on the right? I mean, how am I a sucker? Define what you're talking about. And by the way, I don't mind you, like I said, no snowflakes on. So you're not going to say shit here that I'm running from, but elaborate on it. It doesn't ban abortion. It simply pushes it back to the states where it belongs. That's not 100% true, Kaiser Sose. Okay, I do see, what is that? Melinda, I do see you, but We got one right in front of you.
Hang on
Okay,
1 second, man. I
Harris
just got to tell this
Jordan,
guy something real
come
quick.
hard, come correct every night. What's going on?
What's happening, man?
Ain't nothing at all. Good. Welcome to the program. What's on your
Sorry,
mind?
man. I'm getting a tire change, so I was telling the guy my mileage on my truck.
It's all
Um,
good. It's all good.
so Roe versus Wade does not take away any rights. You understand that, right?
Then what was the purpose of Roe versus Wade?
Roe versus Wade said that the federal government could protect a woman's right when it came to a state. I'm sorry. So it's I transposed that. So Roe versus Wade was basically a woman trying to get an abortion. The state and the husband did not, or the father of the child did not want her to get an abortion, right? So
I'm asking
when
you
the
because I don't think I'm going to agree, but I'm asking you what did Roe versus Wade mean according to you?
so to me, Roe versus Wade says that the federal government can basically tell you what you can and can't do at a state level. Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg agreed that Roe versus Wade was not a strong enough case law to uphold abortion at a federal level and that it should have been overturned and given back to the states.
Okay.
She wrote this in a law journal. I can't remember the exact law journal, but she wrote that. That was an opinion piece by her. So even she knew that Roe versus Wade was not strong enough of a case law to uphold any federal protection of abortion.
Okay, but you're
So
saying that Roe versus Wade does not take away women's rights. Is that what
correct,
you said? Okay,
correct,
but
because it is not a law, therefore it cannot take anything or protect anything.
well, it actually here's where I differ from you. Roe versus Wade prevented the states from banning abortion by giving them federal
No, it did
protection.
not.
Okay,
No, it did not.
so
Because guess what? Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Florida, they are all having restrictions on abortions, correct?
so I go back to my original question. What was the if Roe versus Wade did absolutely nothing? What was the purpose of it?
That's the whole point. Roe versus Wade literally did nothing, which is why Ruth Bader Ginsburg said there's no point in upholding it. It should be overturned because it literally doesn't do anything.
Okay, I'm not in that same camp. I
So
believe that
what so okay, so then you tell me, what does Roe versus Wade protect? What law does Roe versus Wade uphold?
Roe versus Wade prevents the states from stopping a woman from having an abortion.
No. No.
Okay, that's okay.
What law does Roe versus Wade, because Roe versus Wade is not a law. What law does Roe versus Wade protect in order to keep abortion legal at a federal level?
Okay, I'm not talking about protecting a law. I'm saying protecting a
That's the
woman's
whole
right.
point.
But you're
It
not
does
hearing me.
not protect anything. It does
Okay,
not stop anything. It all it does is prevent a state from saying that we as a state say we don't want this to happen in our state. That's it.
okay. Okay, hang on a second. Melinda, I see you in the comments. Harris, I got a female that wants to talk. Are you willing to talk with one of my
That's
callers?
fine. And to the people in the comments, there has to be a law in order to protect people's rights. Yes?
Okay, I'm not in the same.
How's it going?
Melinda, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. What do you want to say to my man Harris Jordan about this?
So Roe versus Wade, literally, it is a federalization for abortion. And all the Supreme Court justices are trying to say is that it has never been a constitutional right. The Supreme Court is a law of the land that protects the Constitution. And I just did a short video on this. The Constitution, sadly, most Americans, and I could probably guarantee you about 80% of Americans in this country do not even know what the Constitution says.
So are
They
you?
probably never read through it.
So
So
you
remember,
essentially, so you essentially agree with Harris, correct?
well, I do, but what they're doing is they're just They're giving it back to the state side. Let the people. And another thing is that people don't understand that the states actually have more power than the federal government.
That
So
is
hence why the Constitution was written. It was written to separate power. It was written to separate power. The first three words are everything. We the people, we the citizens, we the people, right? So states they came into the union with the understanding that they still have more power over their state. That's why Texas, where I live, has that. They can, there are legislators pass the law that it will become extremely illegal in our state, right? So the federalization of it allowed Planned Parenthood. Now think about how many billions of dollars that the Planned Parenthood has gotten on a federal level. Think really hard about that, you guys.
all right. Now okay, Harris.
It's going to eliminate.
Hang on, Melinda. Hold on, Melinda. Harris, do you have anything to add to that? Because I want to ask you both a question. But Harris, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, the only thing that I have to add to that is she literally proved my point. What constitutional law, what federal law
There is none.
gives the okay for abortion to be legal?
There
Okay.
is none.
There
There is no
isn't
more
one.
murder of an innocent baby in the
Okay.
Constitution.
And
Okay.
that's my whole point. So overturning Roe versus Wade literally does nothing. It does not change anything.
Okay,
No.
now I want to ask you both something. And before I do that, I'm going to ask my audience, go ahead and tap the screen, get my likes up to about 5,000 so we can bring me some more MAGA in this room. Okay, I want to ask both of you something about a law. This is out of the state of Missouri, a proposed law that they're going to be voting on, I believe, in May. The state of Missouri, a Republican state. They're trying to pass a law in which the unborn fetus at conception is considered not a citizen, but for the most part, huh?
Yeah.
A human
Yeah.
alive.
Okay, but hear me out. Let me continue. Yeah, okay, a human, whatever you want to call it, but a resident of the state is what they're calling it. So once you become pregnant, your unborn fetus is considered a resident of the state of Missouri. Now listen to this. Here is a quote. And this is coming from Representative Mary Coleman. She is a Republican representative in the state of Missouri. Listen to this quote. If a Missouri resident is hurt, even in Illinois, by a product they purchased in Illinois, there is still jurisdiction for them to pursue a case in Missouri court because that's their home. And this is extending the same kind of thought for abortion jurisprudence. That's a quote. Now, what she is essentially saying that once you have a fetus or an embryo or whatever inside of you, that is considered a resident of Missouri. So if you cross state lines and you cause some harm to that resident of Missouri, even if it's in a liberal state, you can be still held accountable for doing that in Missouri because you harmed one of our residents. Do you understand what that entails?
Yes,
Right.
I sure do.
If a drunk driver kills a pregnant woman, they are charged for the death of that baby as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So
but here's the bottom line: is that exactly what I just said? The states have the power to make their own rules, their law. The people of Missouri. That's why they have special sessions, you guys. This is what we need to educate ourselves across this country. Your county, you have power in your county to say, I don't want that stop sign over there. I don't want my kids in my county school board to learn about CRT. The people have the power. So Missouri and the people of Missouri show up to special sessions and they say, you know what? We want to make abortion so critical that here is how we're going to write our laws. They're leaving it to the states, the people of each state. The states have more sovereignty. You can write up whatever abortion bill you want. Like I'm born and raised in New Mexico. So here's what they're doing. They are shutting down special sessions. They don't let certain people in. They pass bills and laws behind the backs of the people without them being able to rebut it. That's freaking nuts, right? That's called tyranny.
Let me respond to it. Let me point out a comment that this is H.I. Carl. He made the comments, but he said exactly, which means the states own you. In other words, if your unborn child is a resident of the state, now you're saying states' rights, but if a citizen of your state goes to Illinois and has an abortion, it's not happening in your state. Now you're holding that citizen accountable for what they did in a different state. That's not states' rights at that point. Now that's a complete
No,
abortion
but
ban.
it's state law specific. So if your state, Missouri, says, look, if you conceive a child, your first doctor's appointment is at a clinic in the state of Missouri, that unborn child is now a citizen of Missouri. Okay. Now there's always loopholes, you guys. Now let's say that pregnant woman finds out she's pregnant, she doesn't want it, she goes. But I mean, you can't be a citizen of Missouri and get a, it's going to be really hard. So I'm sure there's a lot of moving parts to that bill, but it's the state of the people have the right in their state to make their law, their legislation. That's why you have your own house. That's why every state has its own Senate. That's why every state has its own Supreme Court, because the state has more sovereign power than the federal government. Roe
But
versus Wade was a way to federalize. So again, hence why, like state people like me from Texas, we are pro life. Why should our federal money go to a state like New Mexico, where they will abort a baby up to 9 months? Do you see what I'm saying? Leave it to the people,
I,
and it's up to the people of New Mexico to go and protest and shut that bill down
okay,
stateside.
okay,
Does that
fair
make
enough.
sense?
Okay, well, let me say this, Melinda. I got a liberal I want to get in here, so I've gotten your side of things. I'm gonna go ahead and move on, but I want to get a liberal in here and see how they feel as well. I want to get both sides. I give you plenty
Yeah,
of time to get your point across. So definitely come on back through anytime. This is the first time I believe you and I have talked. I
yes.
tend to be a little bit different, but I understand the point you're making. So come on back through. But I'm gonna put a liberal on here after you, and if you will, stick around and let's see how it
Uh,
goes. All right, you have a good one. All
you
right.
too.
Okay, now both Harris, Jordan, a frequent caller, and certainly Melinda. Melinda definitely stated her point. This is political pendulum. Now, I believe political pendulum, who also is a first-time caller into the show, is coming at it from the left-wing point of view. So let's see what's going on. Political pendulum. Are you on? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How you doing?
All right, I'm doing great. What do you think on what you just heard there from those two callers?
I think neither one of them actually understand what's really happening. States' rights, if we went back to states' rights, we'd still have slavery. This is an excuse to take away rights that have been fought for and earned, and Republicans have been after this for 50 years. It's like a dog chasing a car. They actually won't know what to do with it when it backfires on them.
This isn't going to backfire. This looks like a success, man. I'm telling you, and I'm pro-choice, but I do believe that based on what is about to happen, now let me make it clear. I believe that eventually it will go back the other way, but I don't think it'll happen in our lifetime. I think it will take time for all of these children to be born. The entitlement burden, I believe a lot of them will end up being liberals and at the bottom end of the socioeconomical scale. I believe a lot of this will overburden the foster care system and things like that. But that will not take place at least for a generation or two. But based on what I'm seeing now, I'm willing to admit, even being a liberal, in regards to this issue, I believe they have won. I believe they've won. I can't see what'll stop it, but go ahead.
Well, it may not stop it immediately if we don't get out and vote in particular, but in the next couple of election cycles, we can have a big impact on whether or not how long this lasts. And what I mean backfiring is it's going to backfire on them politically because Republicans have massively overstepped. They've complained about activist courts, but that's actually what they're endorsing now. This is the first time they've taken away rights. And to say that a woman shouldn't have equal rights in every state is a mistake. It's a massive mistake. They've overstepped.
Well, you got to keep in mind they never agreed with this from day one. So it's not like their statement on this was unknown or not. I mean, their feelings on this, they never agreed with this from day one. And I will bring this up, not to fear monger, but I will say the same amount of passion in regards to protecting the unborn. There's a similar amount of passion of preserving the sanctity of marriage as being between a man and a woman. I would not be surprised if there is a swing at that next, but we're going to stick with the abortion issue right now. And
Well, absolutely.
yeah, I will see. Go ahead.
They will absolutely attack that next, and it won't even take that long. But my point is realistically that if we don't fight this, that we concede to the idea that somehow the government can take control of a woman, they don't even have exceptions, that they're basically saying a rape victim That's just a way to start a family. Like the absurdity behind a government telling a woman that they have to carry a zygote to term because a man forced themselves on her. And it's based on the idea that what God wanted the assault to happen so that baby would be born. It's absurd.
Well, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you and say this. And even though I'm pro-choice, I don't like the rape and incest side of it. And I'll say this because in reality, I believe that either most women in America have either had an abortion or they know someone who has. And in the vast, overwhelming majority of those cases, the abortion had nothing to do with rape or incest. In most cases,
I'm not saying that.
Hang on, hold on a second. I'm saying this as a pro-choice advocate. In most cases, it involves a woman that simply had unprotected sex, consensual, unprotected sex, and decided I don't want to have a kid. That's the vast, overwhelming number of abortions. It has nothing to do with rape or incest. But because that's an extreme case, they use that to make the argument. Go ahead.
Well, my point is, though, that's even an extreme to the point where the entire Republican platform does not have an exception for assault. Like so they can say that a woman can be victimized twice. She gets to be victimized by her attacker. He impregnates her, and now the government further adds to that attack by forcing her to have that.
Okay, now, let's tackle your rape and incest aspect. Would you support if a state said a woman cannot have an abortion unless she's been raped or unless it involves incest or health of the mother? Would you support it then, where they banned abortion, but they did give you provisions for rape, incest, or the health of the mother?
I still won't support taking away a woman's choice. But my point overall,
and that's what I was trying to get.
For them to not even have an exception, to me, it's the point that they don't even have an exception means they don't really care about the mother at all. And to be honest, I don't think Republicans even have policies once the baby is born. They don't ever mention infant mortality. And when men talk about, well, it's my baby too, you're not risking your life carrying it for 9 months. They don't talk about how many women die in childbirth.
Let me play devil's advocate because you mentioned not having the exception for rape and incest means they don't care about the mother. But just based on your answer, I could also, if I wanted to play devil's advocate, say you don't care about rape and incest because you made it clear, even if they did give you a provision for that, you still wouldn't support them.
I don't want to take away a woman's choice because I believe in consent. I don't think consent to intercourse means consent to pregnancy. So at what point does consent no longer matter? Just because a guy ejaculates inside a woman doesn't mean he gets to own her and now decide what she can do with her body.
I don't listen now. If a guy, I get what you're saying, but I definitely don't agree. Okay, you're saying if
when does consent no longer matter? He gets consent to have sex, right? But it was just to have sex. If they're not having sex to the point where they both agree that it's to have procreation, then it's just for pleasure, right? So why does the consent stop? When she doesn't want to have that baby, why does he get to force her?
The reason I'm having trouble with this is because you're making it sound like the father of the baby is who is preventing her from having an abortion. And that's not
what's happening now. It's going to be the man deciding and the government deciding for her. She can't decide. She no longer has consent. She no longer has consent.
Let me be clear. Let me be absolutely clear with you. We live in a day and age where women can be politicians as well. These rules that you're talking about, these pro-life rules, they're not all coming from men. There are women on the Supreme Court. There are women governors. There are females that are also
70% of the country does not want to see Roe versus Wade overturned. That includes a majority of both men and women.
And I see
this is an activist court. This is an activist court. Just because they put a woman on it doesn't give them. This is basically an attack on women's rights because they found a conservative woman to back up the idea that somehow they should take away women's rights to choose. Again, it's about consent. And now you're taking that away. You're saying that the man and the government have more control than the woman over her own body.
Well, I understand what you're saying. The part like I said, the problem I have is assuming that all of the pro-life people are men. Most of them are. Most of our pro-choice people.
Okay,
Most
but
of
if
our
a
government.
woman, hold on, but if a woman is deciding she doesn't want to have that guy's baby, now be based on a mostly male dominated Republican Party, that guy gets to say, "Oh yeah, you do have to have my baby."
Well, that's the way it's looking like it's going to go. I understand you're not happy with the ruling. The liberal in me is not totally happy with it, but I got to concede based on what I'm seeing, unless the Supreme Court comes out with a ruling that is the total opposite of that draft that was leaked, you're going to get exactly what you're speaking out against. This is a win for the Republican voters. Now, it's up in the air for the Republican politicians. They're shaking in their boots right now because they had an easy victory over President Biden. And now all of a sudden, this shit is going to galvanize a lot of liberals. So the Republican politicians are not cheering the same way the Republican voters are. I'll let you go ahead and wrap it up. I got somebody else, but go ahead. You get the last word.
Well, again, I still think it's wrong to take away consent in any state. Just because a woman lives in one state doesn't mean she no longer has the right to choose what to do with her body, just because the Republicans decided that this was their 50-year obsession. I would like to see what they're going to do next. Now that they've achieved their basically only policy goal for the last 5 decades, what do you have next? I mean, it would have been
Well,
nice if they concerned themselves with climate change for this much.
that's a
Maybe we would have gone some.
wait a minute. Wait a minute. No. Climate change is a liberal tenant. That's not something they want to do.
I'm talking about 50 years. It's 50 years of obsessing about something that really, in the end, isn't going to help anybody. You're not actually helping the world by obsessing about controlling women.
Okay, well, in response to who is that? King Fit 14 said, so let's get rid of child support. Holler at me off camera on that one. But
I actually
listen,
think if they're going to force women to have children, the government should pay for them.
and that's why I believe that within a generation or two, this is going to be reversed because one way or another, whether you want to give entitlements, food stamps, and welfare or not, if you force, right now we have between 500,000 and about 750,000, 3/4 of a million children that are aborted in America each year. If you force all of those children to come to term, and most of these abortions are being pursued by women on the bottom end of the socio-economical scale. There is no denying that the request for entitlements, welfare, food stamps, housing assistance will go up. So when your comment of if you're going to force these women to have these children, why don't you pay for it? One way or another, that absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, is going to happen. Whether it's incarceration, whether it's a foster care system, whether it's crime, one way or another, whether it's them all growing up to be fucking liberals, one way or another, they are going to pay for this. And that's why I strongly believe within a generation or two, there are going to be Republicans in that era that are going to be like, we need to rethink this. Okay,
Well, I think
listen.
one more thing. Can I say one more thing? I
Go
just
ahead.
think they're also going to run into trouble where women are going to have miscarriages because they always have. And now they're going to have to be investigated for whether or not it was induced. I mean, you're going to have men that are going to accuse their wives or girlfriends of having a miscarriage on purpose. And it's going to get ugly. I mean, they really have opened the door to some ugly stuff.
I don't think there's no way to deny that this could have some pretty ugly tentacles. Hey, good call, man. Come on through. I got somebody else wanting to get in.
All
Hey,
right. Thanks a lot, man. You take care.
oh, you too. Anytime, come on back through. Occasionally, we do get some liberals. I make it clear that my preferred audience is MAGA. I make it clear what I stand for. But that was a good call. That was a really good call, followed by obviously Harris, Jordan, and Melinda. So really good call. I enjoyed that. I realize most of the audience may disagree with that, but this is a no snowflake zone. We let folks get the ability to speak. Lorditis, what's going on?
Hey, I really disagree with that previous caller a lot. But
In what way? In
well,
what way?
let me just explain. Let me explain something. You never had a right to an abortion. There was never a constitutional amendment saying you have a right to an abortion. There was never a federal law saying you could or could not have an abortion. A federal law says what you can and can't do, and an amendment to the Constitution says what you have a right to. Neither one of those things ever existed in our country. What you had was judges 50 years ago saying that you had a right to something without going through the federal level of getting it into the Constitution. It never happened. They had 50 years to get a right in
That's a,
writing.
that's let me. I just want to respond to what you said about not having it right, because Philly 804 made a really good rebuttal, or not rebuttal, but he actually followed up your comment and said, "You better check what else you don't have a right to," and that's a good, really good point. But go ahead and continue.
So you never had a right to it. It was never amended into our Constitution a right to an abortion. By the way, you don't have a right to gay marriage. That's not in the Constitution. There's a lot of things that aren't in there. You're right, what you just said. However, they had 50 years to get this in writing to preserve it so you had a right, and they never did it. Nothing ever happened. They just
I
kicked the
can't
can
argue
down.
with that. I can't.
And
Let me ask you this, and this is another. The previous caller, the one you just disagreed with, he has a very interesting point, and I have to. And I was meant to bring this up myself, but he brought it up in the comments. This is from Political Pendulum. The Republican justices claimed it was settled law when they were trying to get confirmed, and there is actual videos of them, Kavanaugh and all of them, actually being questioned on how they felt about Roe versus Wade. And they did say that this is settled law and we're not going down that path. What do you think about that? Was that just being dishonest?
I think the entire thing is political. Their whole little interview with the Senate and getting voted in on, it's all political theater. Just like the last one we just had couldn't even tell us what a woman is. She said, "Go ask a biologist." I mean,
So you're admitting. So what you're admitting is they actually did lie for political theater purposes. They were
it's
not
political theater, and it has been since the 70s.
Okay, all right, and I will concede your follow up point about Natasha Brown not being able to state what a woman is. That certainly came across as political theater, because if you got her in private and asked her what is a woman, she would have vagina, fallopian tubes, or uterus or something. She would come back with a better answer than she came out with. So normally your political theater answer I wouldn't be in favor of, but that follow up, I can't say shit. You really tied my hands on that. Continue.
Well, I mean, and let's follow this through. So the Supreme Court next year revisits the Roe versus Wade. What is she going to say? Well, you don't have an opinion, Miss Brown, because you don't know what a woman is.
Well, like Chip 1965 said in the comments, it was a BS question. We all understood that if she stated what a woman is, the answers I just gave, uterus, vagina, she would be throwing the transgender crowd under the bus. And that's why I'm also here to say that yours truly, your humble correspondent, it is, in my opinion, that now that they've had such a grandiose success with the abortion issue, they are going to go and look into changing the sanctity of marriage, going back to a man. Because keep in mind, there's a whole lot of women that have been exercising their ability to have an abortion. The LGBT community only represents a much smaller minority of us. If they're okay doing that to women with abortion, I don't think there would be any problem being willing to reverse the LGBT same-sex marriage issue. So I strongly believe, and you can say it's fear-mongering, I know some of you do, but I will say, I'm saying it right now here on this program that is recorded, I strongly believe that going after same-sex marriage is going to be on the docket. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to just tell you this. I'm not going to go there with gay marriage. I just brought it up because the right to privacy ruling from Roe versus Wade is what they wrote to justify gay marriage. So I'm just saying that. But I don't want to talk too much about that. I do want to say that you're not going to see a complete ban in any state. I don't believe it of abortion. However, I do think what you're going to see is, with the exception of molestation or rape, that's probably going to be in nearly every single state. I am a conservative. I am pro-life, and I think that I could agree with that if the law said if you come in to get an abortion because you've been raped, you have to give up the rapist. You have to give up the molester. Why should they get off scot-free? Why should some teacher who knocks up his 8th grade student get away with rape?
Okay, I get your point. I will just say this. Do you realize, I mean, I guess, are we even concerned with how much stress this puts the women under? I mean, we just kind of, to me, in my opinion, it's almost as if the women in this entire mix is an afterthought. Like, you're going to do things the way we think, or the way our God thinks you should act, and if you don't like it, so be it. But you're going to do things the way we think you should do. It really appears, in my opinion, as if the woman, the one that's carrying the child, is really an afterthought.
I really do certainly think that women are vulnerable. I think that they should be protected. Children should be protected, especially. But But what I'm specifically talking about is children that come in to get an abortion.
Wait, repeat that. I didn't hear that last part.
I want to specifically address, if we're going to address children getting abortions. Children should not be getting pregnant, and if they do, and I get why you would want to end the pregnancy of let's say if a 12-year-old got pregnant. I can understand why someone would not want to have a baby at 12 years old. However, what about the rapist or the child molester? How come he doesn't have to pay a price in all this?
Well, if you get convicted of raping a child or whatever you're talking about, you do have to pay a price.
But I think that if you're going to get an abortion at age 12, you have to give up your molester. You have to tell us who the molester is so we can charge him with a crime. Otherwise, men are going to keep raping little girls and getting them pregnant.
You do realize the more of this you do, you're genuinely violating somebody's constitutional rights. You have the right to remain silent. You're taking away that right when you do that.
I'm just saying, if you're going to make an exception for rape and child molestation, then you're going to go in there and say you've been raped and you've been molested, then you need to tell us who raped you and who molested you. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, and you already know what's going to follow up after that. If the woman says I was raped or molested by such and such, next you're going to be forcing her, before she have an abortion, to have some kind of DNA test or something to prove it. We literally are just doing an autopsy on the women. They are just this is why I'm saying that the women are really just an afterthought. We don't really care at all about the women.
We're not talking about women. We're talking about little girls.
Whatever the case may be, whether it's a woman claiming she was raped or a child claiming that they were taken advantage of, if the person is trying to get an abortion and they're pregnant, you're saying that they have to tell on the person that did it. Well, if the person that did it said they did not, and she has their child growing inside of her, the next step is going to be, well, we want to take a DNA test off the child to prove it. We're just literally just going inside of this woman and just controlling her. She is an afterthought on what we want to do.
Well, hang on. I'm being satirical a little bit with this. Here's what I mean. If the Republicans are going to pass a law that says you cannot get an abortion unless you've been raped or molested or you're going to die from having a kid, right? Then they should follow through on their threats and arrest the molesters and the rapist. You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you this then. Okay, let's say we do things your way.
Not my way. I'm just saying, if the Republicans do it this way, because like, for instance, the Texas law, for instance, says if you've been raped or molested, you can get an abortion at any time. Okay, well then follow through on finding the rapist and the molesters. If you're going to put that there.
What if the child does not want? What if the child or the woman that says she's raped says, "I don't want to go through that traumatic event. I don't want to do that."
Well, then I think I'm just playing devil's advocate on this.
And so am I. What if the person says, "I don't want to do it"?
Maybe Planned Parenthood should be forced to take the remains of the child and have it tested for DNA and put in a database. And when the rapist finally shows up in the database, arrest him for it.
Okay, well, I don't want to get too far off the beaten path. Okay. All right, well, listen, I do got someone else wanting to get in. I'll let you wrap it up. Go ahead. I'll give you the last word, but I don't want to get too far into the weeds. We both realize that this legislation or the reversal of Roe versus Wade is going to have tentacles that go into dark areas, like what you're talking about.
Yeah,
That
I'm
absolutely can
saying
happen.
that's what I'm saying. It's real dark. But all I'm saying is both sides are responsible for what's happening today. You never had a right. You never had the option in law, in writing for 50 years, and now it's come down to this, and they think that they're going to pass a federal law, before the next election. It's not going to happen. And even if they did, it will be
No, it's not.
itself will
No,
be
it's not.
overturned by the Supreme Court.
No, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think it's going to pass a law. Okay, all right, fair enough. I gave you a chance to get your point in. Okay, I'll move it on, but I agree with that last part. So come on back through anytime, Lord. I think we talked before, haven't we?
Now, I don't get on live very often. This is probably the second time I've ever talked on live.
Okay, all right.
Really,
Well,
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming through to the program. Come on back anytime. You have a good night.
You too.
All right. We do have Bionic Man. I see you holding on, and there's someone behind you. But let me just respond to a couple of these comments real quick. I don't want you guys are going nuts in here. Desperate Democrat says Sector 7, Texas. To some, and I agree with the comment of that Democrats are desperate on this. This is kind of the equivalent of a gun ban in the ninth inning, but it's going for the liberals. Just like the right is really strongly in favor of the Second Amendment right. And by the way, as a liberal, I'm down with the pew pew life as well. Just like there are some Republicans that are pro-choice. As the caller was stating, that I believe the polls say about 70% of Americans are still pro-choice to some degree. So this is not a law being passed in favor of what the majority wants. This is catering to the minority. But I do agree that Democrats are very desperate on this. I don't see a problem taking the DNA, says Real Trucker Jeff. Yeah, but you're violating the rights of the mom. The mom who is claiming that she was raped has done nothing wrong, and you're taking away her ability as to choose whether or not to submit to a DNA sample. You're literally forcing her in regards to if she says she's raped, now she's got to submit to a DNA sample. You're violating people's constitutional rights. You don't want to be jabbed. She doesn't want to have you taking DNA samples. You're violating constitutional rights because it favors legislation you want. Brown versus Board of Education is up for reversal too, says Funk Era. Right now, I'm going to chalk that up as fear-mongering. Not to say it's impossible. In regards to Brown versus Board of Education, he's talking about schools being segregated. Right now, I'm going to say that's fear-mongering. I strongly believe the LGBT issue has a much more likelihood of happening because I believe there is just as many Americans. In fact, I believe there are more Americans that would support reversing same-sex marriage than there are with the abortion, the Roe versus Wade, and they're doing the Roe versus Wade anyway. I do not believe they would face even as strong of a resistance if they reversed the LGBT same-sex. So remember, that's just since 2015. So they've been fighting Roe versus Wade for 50 years, as the man said. They've been fighting the LGBT issue. That's only 7 years ago. I really believe they could reverse that. You aren't asking her, DNA from the fetus. It's her body at that point. The fetus is connected to her. Now, after the fetus has passed, do you have some kind of warrant where she doesn't get to? It's like just like if they want to take DNA from somebody in your family that's been passed, that died. To some degree, if the death doesn't meet certain circumstances, they got to get permission from the family. You guys are just doing this shit on your own. They don't care about life. You don't see them talk about the planet. Political pendulum. Listen, climate change is a liberal issue. I don't expect Republicans to defend climate change no more than I respect Democrats to defend Second Amendment rights. No one is taking away abortions. It'll just be handled at state level. Jeez. Rio Lobo, you didn't hear me earlier in the broadcast, but the state of Missouri is now trying to pass a law whereas if a woman crosses state lines and has an abortion in a different state, they want to deem her unborn fetus, embryo, at the point of conception, they want to deem that growing child inside of her as a resident of the state of Missouri. So if she crosses state line and go anywhere else, anything she does to that fetus, she can be held accountable by the state of Missouri. Literally, the state of Missouri can put out a warrant for murder for her even though she had an abortion in a different state. This is an actual piece of legislation that's on the books in Missouri. So it's more than a states' rights issue at that point. Okay, I'm still waiting to find a law in the Constitution that was taken away or violated, and that came from Harris Jordan. As you eloquently stated, there is no law. There is no law that was taken away. So I'm not arguing with you at that point. I think you've made your point. I'm not arguing with you, Harris Jordan. Okay, someone is trying to Bionic Man Keith. I didn't want to keep you holding any longer. Go ahead. You're on the program. What's up?
What's up, my brother? You know I love you.
I appreciate
You know I
you.
love you. This is going to show just how polarized we are and how stupid as a country we are. And I'm going to refer to the far right and the far left because you have the far right that doesn't agree with abortions, yet they also don't agree with birth control. They've been fighting birth control on like medical issues and everything. It's like, give out free birth control if you don't want abortions. Then you have the far left that have tried to pass, like all the way to the point of birth to give abortions, where most people that are even pro-abortion want limits to abortions. It's like there's like no in between on this. I turn on left media today. You have people going so far to the extreme that they're saying this is just like a preamble to like reversing gay marriage and interracial marriage, and it's like, okay, here come the morons out. It's like here come the craziness talking. Like we're gonna go back to like the
Okay.
1920s.
Let me stop you now. I think that going back to the 1920s is a bit ridiculous, but you're going to tell me you don't think there's a chance in hell that they may try to preserve the sanctity of marriage and reverse it back to being between a man and a woman. You don't think there's any chance that could happen?
I sure hope not.
That ain't what I asked you. That ain't what I asked you.
I don't know. I mean, looking at the Supreme Court right now, I just think they're a bunch of morons.
Well, let me say this. I agree with your points you made about the far left and the far right. The far left does support late-term abortions, and you're correct. Even pro-choice folks do not generally support abortion even into the second trimester. And I agree with what you said about the far right. Look, when it comes to the far right is evangelicals. And for the most part, the far right wants America to operate according to the Bible. That's where that's coming from. All of the stuff you suggested about the far right, for the most part, they want the country to be completely Christian-based, Christianity and everything, and for us to literally use the Bible as our constitution. But I agree with you, and I'll say this, you gave it fairly because you did point out the aspects of both sides. The only issue I have is the notion that you feel it's ridiculous for the left to suggest that they're going to come at the gay rights next. And that's where you and I disagree. But the rest of that, I'm in the same camp as you. Go ahead.
I mean, this is going to end up biting the Republicans in the ass. They had this next election, in my opinion, the way the economy is right now, it's like the midterm elections, to me, they were going to lose a lot of seats. This might turn out to be a game changer if this goes through. It's like you're going to have a lot of people that are like, no. I mean, you got 70% of the nation that don't want Roe versus Wade overturned. That's Republican and Democrat, independent, you name it, across the board. They don't want that overturned. It's a done deal. It's been like that for 50 years. We don't want to stir that pot again. We're tired of the country being in turmoil. This is going to be protests in the streets. It's like we're tired of this. It's we want.
I'm gonna respond. Carrie Ann, what does that say? Carrie Ann said they are trying to increase the white population at any cost. That's false because this is probably going to increase the brown population because that's majority of who goes and there's far more folks at the bottom end of the scale seeking to have abortion. So in my opinion, I think this will ultimately increase the minority population. But I agree with you, Bionic Man. I do agree that this could literally snatch the jaws of snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. I agree with your comment that the Republicans were looking really, really good going into the midterms, and this shit right here. I mean, even the liberals are not big fans of Joe Biden. There's not a lot of excitement for Joe Biden. Protecting women's right to choose, oh, there's a hell of a lot of excitement for that. So I do agree with you that my folks, for instance, the folks in here, Republican voters, my favorite audience, you MAGA folks, obviously you guys got what you want. So this is a victory for you. But the folks that you want to vote in, your politicians, they're not looking at this and smiling because they do realize this shit has certainly put their jobs at a lot more risk than they were going into the midterms with. So there is normally you said silver lining, but this is the exact opposite of that. There is a dark cloud by having this come out with this much time before the midterms. What is it, May? So you got literally 6 months. 6 months for the Democrats to really have a field day with this shit. And you best believe not only is it going to energize women, it's going to energize the LGBT community. It's going to energize some minorities on any of these controversial rulings that the Supreme Court made in past years. The liberals are going to use this shit to fearmonger their asses off and say that all of that stuff is in jeopardy, which is what you just pointed out from the far left, Bionic Man. Go ahead.
Yeah, one last thing, and this might not sound popular, but unless you have a uterus, you need to shut the hell up. You've got no skin in the game, literally. If there was an issue that dealt with my penis, I would not want women to be ruling on it. No offense.
But let me ask you this question. I can't let you go without asking this question because I made a video about this. And this isn't going to be popular. I'm asking that as a liberal. And I know if I ask this to liberals, they don't like it. But let's say you meet a woman and you guys fall in love and you create a child together. She's pregnant. You're excited to be bringing your first child into the world. And she goes, well, I'm about to go pursue acting, or I'm going to college. I don't want to have this kid. Do you believe as a father you should have any say-so on whether your child is brought into the world or not?
I think that you should be able to try to convince her it's still her body. It's still her body. That baby can't live without her.
Okay. Well, according to her, she is not going to live at all. But I get your point, and your answer is extremely popular, certainly with the pro-choice crowd and most women. So I get your point. Okay.
And this is like, for me, could I do it? No, but it's not me. It's you see what I'm saying? I mean, if it was me, would I have the baby? Sure, but I'm not the woman. That's her choice. Okay. That's her choice.
Well,
and it's like, and I've always said, if you don't have a uterus, it's none of your business. Stay out of it.
Well, I will say this
should be only women should get to vote on this. And if this was a woman-only vote, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
I agree with that. Okay, well, listen, I got to move the program on. There is a lot of folks trying to get in here, but I will say this in regards to you saying a woman should be the one that ultimately makes the decision. Based on what's happening, that is not what we're about to see. So, hey, Bionic Man, like I said, as usual, come on back through. This is
Thanks
a big
so much, brother. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, folks. Let me look at some of the comments real quick before we go on to the next show. This is a big loss of liberals. There is no denying that. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. This is a big loss for liberals. And I've said it, your humble correspondent, I strongly believe that it will remain this way. If the Supreme Court does what that draft says, where they're suggesting that they're going to overturn Roe v. Wade, it is my opinion that this will remain that way for the rest of most of our lifetimes. I do believe it will ultimately be overturned just because it's going to cause all kinds of problems, but it's going to take time for those problems to culminate, and it will be a few generations down the line. Can I get up to 10,000 likes or 200 people in here? Tap the screen, show your boy some love. You got your fucking legislature. You got the Supreme Court. to do what you want thanks to Trump appointing 3 Supreme Court justices. 33% of the Supreme Court comes from President Trump. If you want to ever suggest something that, and this is even coming from a liberal, I'm just going to be real. This makes 2 things that Trump is responsible for that goes down in history. First is the vaccine, which he can't really take fucking credit for, but the CDC claims it saved tens of millions of lives. And here goes now, he's appointed 3 Supreme Court justices, and they've ultimately overturned Roe v. Wade. If you are a Trump fan, have a piece of cake and tell me how well it tastes, because this is a huge win for Republicans. I'm not super happy about it as a liberal, but Trump should be holding rallies using this. This is big news. As Joe Biden once said, this is a big fucking deal. Okay, vasectomy for deadbeats. Oh my God. It's a distraction, says NTR 21. Not for Trump. For Trump specifically, Bionic Man, appreciate the gloves. Holla at your boy. Appreciate all of that. That's all. I always like the rewards. I appreciate that. Same thing, Matthew, with that fire. Not for Trump. Regardless of what happens in the midterms, Trump gets to say, without me, this does not happen. 33% of the Supreme Court justices now serving, and they'll all be around for a while because they're pretty young. That's all Trump. So, in forest fire, thank you. In regards to the comment of promises made, promises kept, even as a liberal, I have to give a man credit in this area. I would give him an A+ because this is he exceeded. He appointed 3 fucking Supreme Court justices. Now, on the liberal side, you got to be pissed off with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Fortunately, with Natasha Brown, the other liberal decided, I'm getting old, let me retire so I don't fucking die in office. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, battling cancer on multiple issues, should not have waited under the expectation that Hillary Clinton was going to win and replace her. She literally wanted to die in office, and she is the reason why it is now a 6-3 majority. If this last guy had not decided to retire and Natasha Brown wasn't there, you could have had a 7-2 Republican majority. And the problem with that is, not only do you get a country that leans right, once you start getting those huge majorities like that, you start entering the realm of far right. And that is why a lot of folks are starting to fearmonger and say that they may go way back in terms of reversing things. I'm not saying whether it'll happen or not, but let's just be clear for you right-wingers that are saying that this kind of talk is fear-mongering. If you had a 6-3 liberal majority on the Supreme Court, you guys would be saying the same shit. They're going to take all our fucking guns away. They're going to force everybody to get jabs. 6-3 majority is no fucking joke. That is no joke. You have the ability to do some wild shit. You now have the ability to kind of make your wildest dreams come true. There's nothing the liberals can do in regards to the Supreme Court to stop things. So the notion that the left is fear-mongering, maybe, but in reality, even though you may see the left as fear-mongering, what they're predicting could happen actually could happen. You have the amount of folks on the Supreme Court, you have the amount of justices to literally make that stuff happen. And there's nothing the left could do to stop it. If liberals had the court, they'd reverse the Civil Rights Act. Space Coast Taco with a name like that. I love the creative names, but the idea that if liberals had control of the Supreme Court, they would reverse the Civil Rights Act that applies to blacks, gays, and all of the primary constituents of their party makes absolutely no fucking sense. Don't forget Putin campaigning for Trump in 2016. Magoro, that is kind of a different conversation. This right now, this is a strong domestic issue. Obviously, the Ukrainian war is still going on. Obviously, Putin is still causing problems, but we're kind of in the country now with the abortion issue. Okay, let me get in here. Lint 504. We do have some callers waiting. I do apologize. I'll see if I can move it along a little quicker. A lot of you guys are getting in very fast in the topic. Lynn 504, what's on your mind? And welcome to the program.
Hello.
Hi.
So I just wanted to say to the guy. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, sorry. I think it's just my side. The guy before, I don't think that it's just a woman's choice, because I can go and have a kid with somebody, and even if it doesn't work out between him or me, and if he didn't want the kid, which is totally out there, I can still force him to pay 18 years of child support. So I do think if we're gonna give the female the choices to have the baby or not, we should also give the man the choice to opt in or out.
Well,
I do fall more along the lines of being a conservative too.
obviously.
What was that?
I said obviously with an opinion like that, but that's not a problem here. Keep your mind, this is a no snowflake zone. We don't judge you for how you feel. So the fact that you're leaning conservative, I have no qualms about it. My preferred audience is MAGA, so we thought most of my audience members are MAGA. This is a very passionate topic, so there are plenty of liberals here tonight, but generally my audience is about 80% MAGA. So the fact that you lean conservative is an issue. But continue.
Nice. So the other thing I wanted to say was I myself have had a couple abortions. I'm not full blown. What is it? Sorry, I had a brain fart. Pro-life. I also have 4 kids. I do think that there are exceptions, and I think a lot of right-leaning people do believe in exceptions. Because that argument of, well, what if I got raped, or what if I die if I have a kid? That argument is just so. It's just, why always go to that place? There's always that exception, and that's always the argument. It's just very annoying, you know, because not all abortions are based off of rapes and medical necessity.
Well, listen, Lynn, I hate to cut you short, but I'm gonna have to because there's a lot of feedback on your side, and a lot of folks who are stating this. So, but I did get your point. I heard you 100%, and I do agree that rape and incest by far is a very minor amount of folks with divorce. But come on through anytime. Like I said, I'm sorry I got to cut you off early, but you got a lot of feedback.
That's okay.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so I've seen a lot of folks in the comments stating that I could hear her feedback, but I could hear her perfectly well. But I've seen a lot of folks saying I got to step away for a minute because her feedback was really loud. Dane Barb 99, and I see you rebuilding in Trucker Dude. I do see you guys. Very strong, passionate topic. So I do expect a lot of folks to come on through. So let's try and make this go. And that guy 875 saying go see 2,000 Mules. Okay, obviously it's only in theaters right now, is what you're saying. So I do want to see it. I really do. Maybe this weekend I will look and see if it's in my area. And if so, I will go and check it out because I absolutely want to see it. Looks like the other folk that was trying to get in, for some reason it's spinning. It's not. We'll give it a second and see if it lets them in or not, but maybe they got some issues. I'll go into the comments really. 2,000 Mules. Has anyone seen that yet? Okay, it's been recommended to me over and over again, and I certainly intend to see it. But has anyone else seen 2,000 Mules? The dude who think he better than God, TikTok know-it-all drama moneymaker. Thomas Vision, I don't know where the hell you're going with that. That guy also, all minorities have reason to join forces. Being heard, if they believe that their rights are being trounced, they do. But right now, that doesn't appear to be where we're going with this. There are folks who are saying it could go to that way, but that's not happening just yet. So until that happens, we'll have to see. Okay, rebuilding life. Go for it. What's up? You're on mute, rebuilding.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, like Verizon.
All right, I appreciate it. I don't know if you remember me.
Cue me in. Just continue out. I'm probably sure I do, but I get a lot of calls.
I've only been on once before, so it's okay if you don't. I know you probably talked to
well, I'm glad you're back. Glad to have you back. What's on your mind?
So, one, I really don't get the huge uproar over this, honestly.
You're taking away someone's ability to do something that they've normally had the ability to do. That's kind of where they go.
Now, level, yes, but it's
I understand. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry. On the federal level, I agree with you. Yes, but all it's doing is giving the power back to the states, and nothing has happened, and it hasn't even passed yet. Right now, what we should be concerned about.
in regards to it not passing, I think that's all but certain it's gonna pass. I mean, even the Supreme
It
Court.
could.
Well, if you were, let me ask you this question: if you were a betting man, would you bet that this is going to pass, or it's not? Which, if you only had one or two options, you could win a jackpot if you had to bet it's going to pass, or you could win a jackpot betting it's not. Which one of those areas would you choose if you knew the jackpot was only under one?
If I'm answering honestly, and please let me answer honestly, yes, I believe it would have passed if it wasn't leaked.
So you don't believe it's going to pass now?
No, I think it was intentional, and this has never happened in the history of the U.S. Supreme Court, where any court decision or any draft, which is what this is, was leaked before the actual decision was made. Because the way the Supreme Court works is they make multiple drafts and they talk about things, and Supreme Court justices can change their decision based upon the drafts that are occurring while they're making that decision process. Now, if it wasn't leaked, I do honestly believe it would have passed. But I believe the reason it was leaked, which I know there's people saying on both sides, oh, conservatives did it on purpose. And then, that's people on the left. And then the people on the right are saying that, there was someone on the left that did it on purpose, right? So it's coming from both sides is what I'm trying to say.
What would be the benefit of the conservatives leaking this document when they were all but assured to win in the midterms? What would be their benefit to leaking?
So I'm not saying there is one, but I'm saying this is what's being reported on the left side. That what's being reported on the left side is the benefit of someone on the right side leaking it is forcing the rest of the justices to hold their ground and hold their stance and not change their vote.
That doesn't make a lot of sense.
The fact that it's now out in the public, and if they do change their vote, it's going to cause such an uproar that the country is going to split. This is basically what's being reported. This isn't me putting these words out there. This is what I'm saying the news is reporting.
Given my take on it, I believe there was a liberal, maybe a Supreme Court justice or an intern or somebody that had access to it. There was a liberal that was pissed off about what was happening, and they released it. There's no reason for the Republicans to release this. This is extremely harmful right before the midterm. So I can't imagine any Republican releasing this.
Right, I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm just stating what's being reported on both sides, if that makes sense.
Okay.
This isn't me asserting my opinion. This is just me stating like what the right is saying and what the left is saying, right?
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Last time I spoke, just so I can touch base here, I am very right leaning, but I am not a Republican, and I consider myself a constitutionalist. And if anything, I don't really consider myself anything because I think I think I'm confusing. Based upon what I do, but
okay, so that's a different answer. I've never heard that answer before.
Yeah, I don't really think tags fit to me, but when it comes to this, and this is me coming back to the issue, is that all it's doing is turning basically the decision back to the states and state powers. And I know that a lot of people will say like, the state shouldn't have a right. Like I was in a live where they're like, oh, well, it should only be federal. We live in a federal land. No, there's states' rights, and there's a reason why there are state rights. The federal government doesn't get to have all the power and tell states what they need to do. This is why we have the federal government, and we have state governments and everything like that. And if you really want to, abridge yourself to only having a federal government that's in charge of everything, I would argue that that's going to lead to very bad things.
Well, let me respond to that in regards to states' rights versus federal rights. I do agree this is leaning towards giving more power to the states. However, I will say one of the main reasons we have the federal government is because in a lot of cases the states were abusing their rights. I mean, keep in mind, you see how I look. How would I have functioned if we never had the federal government and we only had states' rights? There would be places that would be unsafe for me to go. There would be states where women couldn't vote. So while I agree with you, one of the reasons why the federal government has gotten so much power is the states' rights. The states have abused it, and they've mistreated so many people. I mean, when you really look at our entire history, 250 years or however long we've been a country, majority of that time, there have been no shortage of states that have been abusing the hell out of their power and oppressing a lot of people. And I'm not just talking blacks. I'm not just talking natives. I'm not just talking women. I'm not just talking gays. I'm not just talking non-Christians. Just a whole lot of people that have been getting oppressed to the point where the federal government has stepped in and said, you know, if this guy leaves New York and comes to Alabama, y'all can't treat him like shit because you want to use states' rights against this guy. We want this guy to be able to be treated like a human being no matter where he is in the federation. So there is a reason why we have federal rights, or better, we have a federal government. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you that there's a purpose for the federal government and states' rights. There's a both, and that's why it's a balancing act, right?
True, true. And real quick, Scott Hastings said, "I think you're just talking black." I would tell you, I would invite you to open up a history book. Don't be deceived just because it's coming from a black guy. Take African Americans completely out of the picture, and you tell me if you don't still see plenty of oppression in our history. Take the entire African American group out of American history, and you tell me if there's not still plenty of oppression to all sorts of groups being marginalized. Okay, go ahead, Real Builder. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. I'm fine, man. I appreciate our conversations, and I think you're a more rational person than most, which is why I actually. So, like I said, it is a balancing act, and there are times the federal government steps out of its place, and times that states step out of it. Right? This is also why we support to rule on things, right? And so, like, regardless of this being a draft, whether it passes or not, there have been multiple times where the Supreme Court has reversed decisions, oftentimes in the good, right? So we're talking, why am I being ignorant? But segregation was, you know what I'm thinking of, the actual title. When segregation was allowed in the 1960s.
You're talking Topeka, Kansas versus Board of Education. You're talking about desegregating schools?
Yeah, well, all across the restaurants, everything like that. The Jim Crow is what I was. Sorry, I was just blanking, and I know that's very ignorant of me. But so we're talking about Jim Crow. They overruled that, which is obviously a good thing, right?
Right.
Now, regardless, this shouldn't have been leaked at all, and that speaks to how bad our divide and our split has gotten in our country in between the left and the right. That now the Supreme Court, you're seeing it happening within their jurisdiction.
Yeah. And when you got a 6-3 majority, there's no way that's not going to be very divided. In fact, you gotta think when it comes to division, the presidents, whether it's a Republican president or a Democratic president, you're essentially selecting someone that promotes divide. You want somebody that's going to be as far to the left or as far to the right as possible. So they're literally promoting divide on the Supreme Court.
This is where I want to push back a little bit, in all fairness. So first off, if we're talking about 6-3 divide, the decision was a 5-4. So there is one of our justices, which dare not be named, that is actually more left-leaning on a lot of issues that people would say is right-leaning, but actually decides to lean left on a lot of things, which is fine. But here's the problem, and this is the problem I have with this conversation when it leads to this. The justices are not supposed to interject any politics. Now, I get what you're saying is that if a president is nominating justices, they are going to choose them based upon their rulings and their leanings, based upon the outcomes they want to occur within their administration and future administrations, right? According to their ideas, whether that's left or right. But the whole purpose of the justices is to literally deliberate on the Constitution and everything that it is, like in writing, and say, is this right or wrong based upon the facts of a case that is brought forward to them. So politics do not come into it, or they're not supposed to come into it.
Well, I mean, I think it would be kind of disingenuous to think that they're ruling without politics. I mean, when that woman refuses to even answer what the definition of a woman is, there's absolutely no doubt she's going to be ruling from a political stance.
Right. Which thing is kind of sad that it's gotten to this point, right? Because politics are not this, right? I'm not saying that it does not exist in some degree on both sides, right? But I mean, and I think it would even be ignorant if we're honestly studying history to say that it hasn't happened throughout all of American history, right? I think one,
Oh, absolutely.
it's way more obvious with social media and technology nowadays, and two, also with the amount of time that has gone by and the divisiveness that has spread throughout the country, that is also more noticeable, if that makes any sense,
It makes
based
sense.
on previous years in history. So for me personally, like, and I won't hide from it, I'm completely pro life, right?
Okay.
But like, if I'm gonna destroy like a lot of, and I know this isn't you, so please don't think I'm putting any words in your mouth. But a lot of these people's arguments, like one of the previous guys was on, and he said men should just shut the hell up and keep their conversations to themselves. Well, according to modern day leftists, men can give birth, and since I can give birth, I get to have an opinion. And since Judge Ketanji Joe Jackson cannot say what a woman is, I can be a woman, so I get to have an opinion. Do you get how easily I'm tearing down their
Yeah,
argument?
and I think you're illustrating a pretty good point. Like I said from the beginning, all of this stuff allows all sorts of rabbit holes, dark rabbit holes we can go down. And like you're making a good point that if you believe that only a woman should have a say so in birth, and then a guy decides to identify as a woman, then he should also be in that crowd. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to deny that this shit can get to be real complicated. And folks, get my likes up. 10,000 likes ain't impossible in this group. Tap the screen.
This is a good guy. Like, you got to pump it up.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But yeah, this is going to be really complicated. But listen, I want to get somebody else in here. If you got anything else you want to say to wrap it up, feel free to go ahead and drop that. Otherwise, let me move it on. Go ahead.
What I would wrap up with, if you'll let me, is that one, I appreciate this conversation, and we need to have more like this. Civil, we're actually having honest intellectual conversation, and we admit the faults on both sides. But two, what we need to do is there's a food shortage coming up, and I want people to take care of themselves. If you look at my name, Rebuilding Life Gardens.
Now I remember you.
Yeah,
I remember you because you mentioned
yeah,
this before. Now I remember you. Go ahead.
right. So I want people to buy some emergency food. Don't go crazy. I'm not saying like become a hoarder, but like buy some emergency food, buy some extra water, start gardening and planting some fruit trees to whatever capacity you can. Take care of yourselves. That way you're a little bit more self-sufficient and you can take care of yourself a little bit better if anything were to happen and bad times come, whether it's a monsoon or power's out for a few days or
Fair
worse.
enough. Okay, fair enough. There's nothing wrong with being self-sufficient. Hopefully, we don't get out to the emergency portion of that. But appreciate the comment. Come on back through anytime, man.
You too. Take care, brother.
All right, absolutely. Okay, real trucker or trucker dude, better yet. I'm about to call you a different person. Trucker dude. I think we have talked before. Men need to stop having. Hang on, trucker dude. Hold on. You're looking good tonight. Hold on. Men need to stop having conversations about. You got some feedback over there, trucker dude. Maybe you need to turn something down or some audio. You got feedback. Okay, men, there you go. It got corrected. Men need to stop having conversations about women's reproductive rights. Women can govern their own. That's probably not going to happen at this point. Trucker dude, what's up? Okay, you're working on something. I see you. Someone educate me, please. How can a man give birth? Right now, it can't happen, but I don't know where the hell science is going to go. I don't. Men can't have babies. It's a talking point that they run to. Dahlia, we can say a whole lot of things that men can't do, but if you can identify as a woman, apparently men are gaining abilities to do things we didn't normally think they could do. Can I get you guys to tap the screen and get my lights up a bit? Try to get into the 10,000, as I always ask you guys to do. You tap the screen, you see those hearts popping up. Get your boy up to 10,000 likes. We want to get a few more folks in here, particularly MAGA, as I always say. Is he hitting the bong?
There we
He
go.
can and he never will. Okay, I hear you loud and clear. What's up?
There we go. First of all, I love your show. You and I have talked a couple of times now, and
Welcome back.
with the Roe versus Wade thing, I'm up in arms about it because number one, if you look over the past 20 years, how much of our internal government stuff has been leaked to the media. So this is the first time with the Supreme Court, but This is still a draft. It hasn't actually been voted on. Actually, meaning it, it's actual bill, and they're trying to pass it. This is just a draft. But personally, with the information coming out on Roe afterwards and how she's flipped her story, 10, 15 times or whatever, and she was paid to say that she was against abortion, and then that in the beginning she was lied, she lied that she was raped, which is why it came to the Supreme Court anyway. There's just a bunch of information out there, and you really don't know where to go. But like the previous guest said, that is that it's not banning anything as of yet. Granted, it could go that way, but it's not banning anything as of yet. It is sending it back to the states. And in my opinion, the federal government needs to stay out of a woman's body and our schools and every other aspect of our life. On the flip side of that, the states need to stay out of our lives and out of our schools and everything where a government entity is there.
Fair
Follow
enough.
what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Let me ask you this question based on your statement that right now it is only a draft. Do you believe they're going to actually reverse Roe versus Wade?
That's a yes and no answer. Um, on one hand, I think that it will pass, it will go through, and they will uh, put Roe versus Wade um, back to back to the states because it never should have been federally mandated or federally done anyway. It should have never done that. On the no part is especially with this leak of this draft that's happened right before midterm elections, it's going to put pressure back on the courts in order to drop the case and possibly bring it up after the midterms again. This is a catch 22 all the way around because I find it kind of funny how the document was leaked and within 45 minutes to an hour, we had hundreds of protesters at the Supreme Court.
At this point, I can't imagine it would not pass. I mean, can you imagine how many disappointed Republicans there would be if a 6-3 Republican majority court reneged on this at this point? They would cause a lot of Republican politicians to lose their job. They would be like, "You guys are a bunch of phonies. You had us thinking you were going to," and Trump would hammer them. Trump would literally go the fuck off if those Supreme Court justices threw this type of carrot and stick out there and then yanked it back. At this point, in my opinion, those 5 Republican Supreme Court justices, they don't have a choice. And Roberts, the one who went on the side of the liberals, he's probably already going to get attacked. But I can't imagine him not doing it.
We have a commenter, Delilah_talk. She says Roe versus Wade also impacts personal freedom beyond abortion. Unfortunately, Roe versus Wade was exactly on abortion, no other freedoms. It was exactly for abortion. It was done for abortion, so it's not going to affect anything else except put abortion back into the state's hands. But even then, let's just say it does pass. It gets out of the federal because the federal government should not have anything to do with it, and it goes back to the states. The laws that are being passed in the states right now still do not limit abortion. It limits time. Take Texas, for example, it's 6 weeks. They say that the heartbeat can be detected at 6 weeks. After that, it's too late because you can take Plan B, other ways before abortion.
Well, make no mistake about it. I think it would be disingenuous not to admit the ultimate goal is to get rid of abortion entirely. It's very similar to when you hear liberals saying, "Hold on, hang on a second." It's very similar to when folks say, "Well, when you hear liberals saying, well, I just want to ban semi-automatics, or I just want to ban rifles," or the ultimate goal is to ban all of that shit. And this is very similar to that. The ultimate, right now we're talking states' rights and all, but the ultimate goal, if you live in Missouri, if you live in Kentucky, if you live in Indiana, and all of your residents, your citizens that want to have an abortion are going to Illinois and they're still getting the process done, I can guarantee you those red states are going to take this to another level and find out how they can stop that from happening. I mean, the ultimate goal is to stop abortion, not to just be states' right.
See, there's another case that this will affect, and it's Planned Parenthood versus somebody, and I really don't remember the name, and I really didn't want to bring it up, but maybe you could put two and two together, after the show, and you're doing your own little research or whatever. But there's a case. It's Planned Parenthood versus somebody. I really don't remember who, but it directly deals with Roe versus Wade. So if Roe versus Wade gets overturned, this Planned Parenthood, whatever case it was, because I've been looking for it again after I found it, and I'm like, I should have saved it, and I didn't. Is it Planned Parenthood versus Casey? Is that who it is? Somebody just said it in the comments. I just happened to look down.
Okay, let me see. I didn't see. Planned Parenthood is for the going to help the low income anyway. Well, yeah, Ajna is pointing out that Planned Parenthood does more than abortion. Yeah, they got Planned Parenthood versus Casey. That came from Casey Kyle. Yeah, so he did say, and someone else said it too. Looks like user guy 1962 said the same thing.
Okay, if that's what it was, I want to read that because I'm sitting there going, wait, what? It was a landmark case in the Supreme Court regarding abortion.
No,
It says
um,
upheld the right to have an abortion established by Roe versus Wade. Basically, that's the first two sentences. It
well,
altered the standard for an it.
like a lot of the viewers pointed out, with Ruth Bader Ginsburg stating that they should have passed legislation to make abortion, the right to have an abortion, a lot more solid and not leave it open for what has just now happened or what is about to happen.
Right. I mean,
So,
I would agree with that. But it's just like the broadness of the tennis is it the Tennessee bill? Yeah, the Tennessee bill about it was about marriage, and what it had to deal with was common law marriage, but
okay,
they didn't put an age in it.
yeah,
So a lot of people on the left and the right were going, "Oh, they're trying to marry 10-year-old kids." That's
yes,
not
I
what
do
you know.
remember.
That's not what it was
Yeah,
about. It was
yeah,
about common law
yeah.
marriage, and there's
I
already
do
a law on
remember.
marriage. It's
I,
18, so you know what I'm saying. But they had to write an amendment to it stating that it starts at 18 or whatever.
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember the big uproar over that. Well, listen, trucker dude, I want to get back to the comments to keep it moving,
All right,
but
brother. Well, like I said, I just came in. I'm kind of I'm on 50-50 on it whether it will pass or will stand. But I find it funny that it's leaked. 45 minutes later, there's hundreds of people on the Supreme Court. It's almost as if somebody knew. You follow what I'm saying? And if that's the case, why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we talking how our government is not secure enough that documents that shouldn't be released
oh, it's being
are
talked
being
about.
released?
I watched the five on Fox News, and that was the first thing he talked about. It is being talked about. I don't
But
know
that
why.
was this morning after it was leaked.
Oh well,
Nobody
yeah,
knew no nobody knew about this 3 days ago. This just happened yesterday, right? What's today? What is
Today
today?
is the third,
Today's Tuesday.
Tuesday
Yeah,
the
so
third.
it was just leaked last night.
Yes,
So we didn't know about this 3 days ago. Nobody was in an uproar over Roe versus
that is,
Wade,
that is
and
true.
I find it really funny that, like I said, it was leaked. Within 45 minutes to an hour, there are hundreds of people at the Capitol steps, and we're right before an election.
Well, and I'll respond to that because Matthew Warren, what does it says? Matthew Norman asked me, "Do I think the Dems did this to fire up their base?" Yeah, I believe that document was leaked by a liberal, by a Democrat. The Republicans have no benefit to leak that document. So yeah, I
Yeah,
absolutely believe that it was leaked by a liberal,
yeah, they're
knowing it
being
would fire up the base. Like I said earlier in the broadcast, President Biden, there's no enthusiasm, even from the Liberal Party, around President Biden. This draws a lot of
oh,
enthusiasm from the Liberal Party. This is a major issue. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Denala underscore talk. You can go back and she said that Politico has had this since February, and if I remember correctly, this was only talked about. The draft. It was done in January or February. So if they had it since February, something's really wrong.
Well, they don't. There's no political might be right. I don't believe that, but it could be. I believe if Politico had this, they would have released this sooner. I mean, the earlier this gets released, the more time it gives the Democrats to organize and prepare for the midterms. And Politico leans left. Why would you hold this that long?
Yeah, you make up a good point.
Yeah, they would have been released. Okay, well, let me get back
All
to
right,
the comments.
all right, brother. Well,
Definitely.
it was good seeing you again. I appreciate you letting me on. I'll talk to you later, my friend.
Absolutely. Come on through anytime. Okay, get into some of the comments. I hate to neglect the comments, but get a lot of good callers coming in. I really enjoyed talking to him. Who cares if it was leaked? It's about what they're doing. Well, you want privacy in the sanctity of what the Supreme Court doing to remain private. You don't want shit just being leaked out like that. Intense 97. You don't want. You never know how much damage you could do to a case or any type of cause or legislation by having information come out before everything's adjudicated. So no, you don't want that. Make up your damn minds, crazy mind. Politico chose to release the information this week. Dahlia TOK, in my opinion, if they had this shit, they would have released it sooner. There is no benefit to the Liberal Party to hold this until now. You only have, this is what, the 5th month of the year? November's the 11th month, so you got 6 months. You only have 6 months into the midterms. Actually, yeah, about 6 months exactly. November 4th, this is May 3rd, so exactly 6 months and 1 day. If you could have released this in February, giving you 8 months instead of 6, or 9 months instead of 6, you'd release it in February. You wouldn't have waited. So it makes no sense for Politico to sit on this for 3 months. The Republican benefit to leak is to lock in the 5 votes. The 5 votes are, however those Supreme Court justices feel about reversing Roe v. Wade, releasing this document is not going to change that. They already felt that way. So I don't necessarily buy that. Why does it matter if they voted and decided in February? They haven't voted yet, user 1962. This is a draft. Whereas they give their reason why they voted a certain way on any decision they made. They have not officially made the decision yet, but we've received through a leak the explanation for why they made the decision, which leads us to believe that they're going to make this decision, and here is the way they're going to explain it after they make the decision. Their draft is already leaked out, but officially abortion is still 100% legal. That decision has not been made officially yet. This ruling will make my right-leaning family of 5 vote blue. Really? Wow. You have a family of 5. This is from Ajna, frequent viewer of the program, friend of the program. Your family leans right, but they're obviously all pro-choice. Now, several of the viewers here have pointed out that in America, there's like a 70%, the polls say that about 70% of Americans are pro-choice at some point, maybe first trimester. As the embryo goes from embryo to fetus and goes through the trimesters, the amount of support for abortion rights drops off. I don't think there's hardly anyone that support abortion in the 3rd trimester. You're going to be down in the single digits or something. But first trimester, yeah, there's a whole lot of support for that. There's some polls that say as much as 70%. So yeah, it could be a Republican family that is pro-choice. 70% obviously means it's more than just liberals. We are pro-medical freedom for everyone. This encompasses that. Fair enough. And I'm assuming that also encompasses freedom in regards to vaccinations, which is crazy because the same party that believes my body, my choice on vaccinations, for some reason they lose that when it comes to abortion. And it's exactly vice versa with the Liberal Party. They'll force you to have a vaccination, but say that you can't touch a person when they want to have an abortion. It's a lot of... what do you want to call it? Hypocrisy in that stuff. Let's see. Yes, freedom of choice for Vax 2. Now, that is right. That does mean right. Kelly Kemp, same for Dems, exactly. Justin Tyree, 166. We live in the UDA. It should be handed down to states, and if it does, about every state will vote. Katie Meyer, thank you for those roses. Appreciate that. Folks, get me up to 15. You guys have been kind of cool on the likes. Go ahead and tap the screen. Let's see if we can hit 15,000 likes since we're pretty damn close. But in regards to the states' rights, Justin Tyree, I've said it several times throughout this broadcast that I do believe if we allow the abortion debate to fall into the hands of states' rights. I do believe you're going to have states trying to interfere with the rights of their neighboring states. The right wing states will not tolerate a bunch of their citizens crossing state lines and going and having abortions. The left wing states will start doing everything they can to help folks in right wing states to cross state lines. They're going to be interfering with citizens across the borders. That's guaranteed to happen. So I get what you're saying, but I guarantee it's going to happen. You guys got me up pretty quick. How was abortion before Roe versus Wade? Perilous, dangerous, illegal. States' rights is such a tired justification for subverting the majority to the will of the minority. In this case, it looks like that way. Never met a handsome liberal. 2547 Polish audience or something like that. Hey, you're meeting one now. You're meeting one now. And you're meeting one that can concede both points on both sides. And this is a no snowflake zone. So we let you speak your mind here. Welcome to liberal heaven. Crossing of states. What did that say? Crossing of states borders occurred pre-Roe. Yeah. Okay. The point is that you can believe whatever you want, but you shouldn't be able to make a choice for me. Dahlia. That's a very, very common statement. But under this Supreme Court, if things go the way they look like they're going, they are going to be making choices for you. This is a big loss. No denying this is a huge loss to the Republican Party, Democratic Party, and a huge win for Republicans. It looks like this is going to happen no matter how much Republicans cry or Democrats cry about it. I don't think there's a lot we can do to stop this. I really believe this will happen. You can do things to hopefully offset it in the future, but if I'm a betting man, this is going to go through. The point is that so give parents power with HR 1557, but take it away with Roe versus Wade. No, this whole thing is a distraction of what's happening right now. Pop Z738, if it's a distraction, I consider it a successful one. Unapologetic black man. I love that fucking name. So give parents the okay. I saw your comment already though. Is there really a safe abortion? That came from It's 5 o'clock somewhere. No, there's no safe surgery. There's no safe aspirin. There's no safe drug. But there are ones that are more safer. Certainly you'd want to be in a position where you got doctors and anesthesiologists and everybody around you, as opposed to being in a closet by yourself with a hanger. So there is certainly a safer way to do it. But if you want to go technically, is there a safe? No, there's not. Just like there's no safe surgery. Every surgery has complications. Let's see here. Gotta read the opinion. A lot of propaganda went into passing Roe. And there's going to be a lot of propaganda going into overturning it. The new laws are used in civil cases to punish anyone who crosses state lines. And I do believe that's going to be the ultimate outcome of this. Ken Bisco McLeod. I do believe that. That's what they're leaning towards. Dane Barr. Okay, let's see here. You got a little bit of feedback. Can you hear me?
Am I live?
Okay, you're live. Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to ask a quick question. Do you think Biden or Nancy Pelosi will push to end the filibuster as a result of this to pass it legislatively through the Senate to legalize abortion on a federal level?
The filibuster that was implemented by their own Chuck Schumer. In my opinion, they'll probably do whatever they think they can get by with to straighten this out. If that will work, they will try that.
Gotcha. That was the quick question because maybe I'm not too familiar with the parliamentary procedure as far as it goes, but I don't know if getting rid of the filibuster for this would get rid of the filibuster for everything in the future.
Well, considering this is coming from the Supreme Court, I don't honestly do not think there's a way to stop this. Not in the interim. Maybe later on down the line, but in the beginning, as far as reversing Roe versus Wade, I don't personally think there's a way to stop this.
Gotcha. The way I understand it as it stands is that they're turning it over to the states, but if they were to produce federal legislation legalizing abortion on a federal level, which there currently is none, like past the I think it's called the Women's Health Care Protection Act, if they were to pass that, that would legalize abortion federally on a federal level through federal litigation.
Right, but they don't have anywhere near the votes to do that right now. There's no chance of that happening unless for some reason this issue galvanizes Democrats to the point where they just go insane in victories in November, and that's not expected to happen. So that's not. I don't believe that's anywhere on the horizon where they would get enough votes to be able to do that
and overcome well, if they were to get rid of the filibuster, to get rid of the 60 votes, they maybe could potentially do that if they got.
There's too many. I hate to interrupt you, but there's too many liberals like Joe Manchin. Even if they only needed 50 votes, I don't think he'd even get to 50.
You don't think Joe Manchin would go for it?
I wouldn't bet money on it. Joe Manchin, that you got members of the Republican Party that are trying to actively recruit Joe Manchin and tell him, you have voted against Biden so much, we're willing to let you switch parties. We will accept you. So I mean, they're actually saying that has happened. So yeah, I don't think Joe Manchin will go for it. In West Virginia, no.
Very understandable, very understandable. But appreciate letting me on and ask my question.
Absolutely. Feel free to come on through anytime, man.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, have a good night. Okay, let me look at some of the comments. I see somebody else. Joe Manchin is a Republican, says he bots. And I'll tell you something. If you had a Republican that was voting against Trump as much as Joe Manchin votes against Biden, they would absolutely be calling him a rhino. Shit, he might even be receiving fucking death threats. So when you say Joe Manchin is a Republican, yeah, he's pretty damn close. So the government wants to choose when parents have rights, and it looks like they're going to successfully be able to do that. Jeffrey Johnson says Trumpers equal dumpers. Okay. Question. Nathan Strong, if women should have the choice of abortion, should men have a choice of not paying child support? That came up earlier in this broadcast. Hey, shit, I'm a man with some of those woes, so that ain't going to happen, though. That's not going to happen. Political pendulum. We're going to wrap this up in about 15 minutes. I do got to get on to a few other things, but political pendulum, you're back. What's up?
Well, I was just curious about if you think that they're going to succeed in this, how do you think we can fight back as far as, turning the tables in the way we were talking about earlier with, if you're going to force women to have children they didn't want, then you should support them. I mean, it's like the Republican mantra, right? So follow through.
I do believe that the simple outcome of this will ultimately lead to Republicans reversing it. But like I said, it's going to happen at least a generation or two down the line. Once all of these, because like I said before, you have between 500,000 and 750,000 abortions in America each year. Most of the women seeking abortions are on the lower end of the socioeconomical scale. So you're talking about a lot of folks who are going to have children and be coming for entitlements, food stamps, welfare, housing, all of the stuff that Republicans do not tend to support. But it's going to take time for all of those children to hit the system and for Republicans to say, look, we've created a mess. And in addition to entitlements, we're talking about potential for rising crime because let's face it, I hate to say it this way, but let's face it, when you look at the type of Americans that end up in the penal system, it's folks who come from broken homes and areas they were unwanted. And this is that type of a scenario. So you're going to have most likely increased incarceration. You're going to have increased crime, all of that, because these are, and I mean, I really hate to say it this way because we're talking about the life of human beings, oftentimes minorities. But I'm just simply saying, if you force all of these mothers that do not want their children to have their children, it is a bit asinine to assume that they're all going to turn into great mothers. They're telling you from day one, I don't want this kid. And you're like, no, you're going to go home and have it anyway. That's not going to probably be a great mom. The odds are just not there. So you're talking more foster care, all of these systems that we're already trying to find a way to reduce funding to are going to explode. And I do believe a generation or so down the line, Republicans are going to be like, we need to fix this. This is not what we want. But right now, it's not going to happen. It's not going to, not in our lifetime.
If we could turn out the vote like we did in 20 and get enough people out in 2022 and 2024, and we can actually make people like Manchin and Sinema irrelevant by having more control in Congress, then we can codify Roe federally. we can actually get a lot of things done that they're blocking us right now from doing.
If you can get that type of support, yeah. But I don't know. I don't know if this issue alone. Now, if you can fearmonger and talk and get liberals to believe they're also going to come at the LGBT rights, you get liberals to believe that they're probably also going to come after minorities and reverse a lot of. Then you might. It's possible. It's possible. But you need a lot of folks to actually show up to the polls.
I see people talking about why not leave it up to the states. Again, why should women have to worry about which state they're in, worried about if they have the same rights? I mean, if they get a job in some state, they have to worry about moving there now. And that's the other thing it's going to affect economically. It's going to make a decision on whether or not people want to expand. Businesses are going to have to decide whether or not they want to go to states where their female employees may not want to go because now they don't have the same rights.
Well, let me say this in regards to the fall in 2020. You said overturning Roe v. Wade is not banning abortion. No, technically, it's not a complete ban of abortion, but it is effectively going to prevent certain women from having. I mean, if you live in New Orleans, for instance, if you literally live in New Orleans, you want to have an abortion, you're going to have to travel hundreds of miles. I think New Mexico or maybe Illinois is the nearest state that you're going to be able to go to. So no, it's not a ban. But you impose so many hurdles that essentially that's what's going to happen.
Hey, can I ask Jay Walker 75, what do you support as far as choice? Do you think that if a woman's using birth control and it doesn't work, now she has to have that baby even though she didn't want it? She was clearly trying to avoid getting pregnant. That's what I meant about consent. If it's no longer about consent, if the government's going to take away consent from a woman and take away her right to privacy, where does that stop?
Well, according to the right that are supporting this, they're going to make it sound like they're only stopping at states' rights. You talk to the left, they're going to believe it's going for it's. I make the comparison to the Second Amendment because it has a lot of parallels. Whereas the left will tell you all we want to do is ban high capacity magazines, or we only want to ban assault rifles. We're not going to mess with handguns. If you're pro Second Amendment, you look at that like that's a lie. No, they're trying to take away all of our guns. Well, it's the same way here with the abortion debate. The right is saying, well, we're only going to stop at states' rights. Well, the left is like, no, the ultimate goal that you guys want is to ban all abortion. And I think there's a good point to be made on both sides.
Somebody said the right to privacy was erroneously applied. How so? What gives you the right to get into a woman's business on whether or not she got pregnant? I mean, you're going to have to monitor now women if they got pregnant or if they had a legitimate miscarriage. I mean, this is really going to get ugly. And believe me, Republicans will attack birth control.
Well, and that's what I'm preaching here. And Matthew, thank you. Appreciate those roses. Holla at your boy. And that's what I'm promoting here is that this does open up all sorts of wormholes. And with a 6-3 majority, for those who, and thank you, Ajna and Tiger. Right, you guys are being nice, very nice. Appreciate that. Much love. For you guys who on the moderate right wingers that are stating that no, we just want to stop at states' rights. With a 6-3 majority, there is enough room to go a little bit further to the right than just being a moderate. And no doubt that there's a possibility that could happen. Now, will it happen? I can't say that they're going to go and overturn all sorts of other things in addition to Roe versus Wade. But I will say this, with a 6-3 majority, they can do that. They absolutely can get through with some of that stuff. West, Maine, thank you. Thank you for the roses. So we'll see, but I do believe there's a legitimate reason to be concerned.
Oh, I've always been concerned. I've been trying to tell people this for a while, that this is the Republican obsession. That's why, even though that they got 2 presidents to appoint Supreme Court justices, that the American people didn't want those presidents. I mean, they don't care. McConnell stole a seat from Obama for this purpose.
Yeah, and shout out McConnell. You know, I'm not a McConnell fan, but I got to give him credit. He was very effective in that. But listen, I got somebody else that want to get in. I want to go ahead and move it along before I wrap it up. I see Jesse's out there. I'll give you the last word. Go ahead and wrap it up. We're moving on. So this is a lot to be concerned with.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I was just, it's good to hear your lives and your insight. I appreciate it. You have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Come on back anytime, as I always say. Okay, Jesse, let me see what's on your mind. We got Jesse here at our end that is new to the program. Let's see what's going on with you. This is why we have a Democrat. TikTok just throws your comments about you. Jesse, go ahead.
Good evening, y'all.
Good evening.
I just came across your live, and it looks like a safe space to just talk. And I'm a nurse. I try to advocate as much as I can. So I was seeing if I could pop in.
How do you feel about what's transpiring right now with the Supreme Court?
Oh man, from a healthcare standpoint, I think it's going to be very dangerous for a large number of communities of women. Because what it boils down to, religion aside, politics aside, their access to a safe abortion option is what's being banned. It's not the abortion, it's the access to a safe abortion option, which will then lead to women seeking out unsafe means of abortion, which means things that you hang in the closet. If you catch my drift, I'm trying to be careful. I work in the ER. I live in Alabama, so they've already started that here, but we still have that access available. And I see at least one patient a month with the thing you hang your clothes on problem with some serious issues, and that it's not even banned yet.
Wait a minute. You see one patient a month. What do you mean, like a botched abortion or something?
They tried to use a clothes hanger.
Jesus. You're already seeing, Alabama is a strong Republican state. So you're saying
I'm already seeing that before it's all the way banned.
Wow.
They've already implemented it here, but they've not completely physically banned them yet. So you could still go to a clinic, and so this is without it being banned. But a lot of times it's people. There are still a lot of people don't realize there are different socioeconomic groups of people who probably don't even know what a condom is or how to put one on, or that they could have went and gotten an abortion because they figured, why would anybody do that?
Wait a minute. You had me at the hanger part, but I can't imagine any adult worth his salt not knowing in America not knowing what a condom is. How could you be, if you're 10 years old or more, you gotta know what a condom is. You're losing me with that. But go ahead.
Well, it depends on, I will say this, depends on what kind of school that they're in. My son goes to a private school, and they don't have that talk within that school, but you
can listen to rap music. You can listen to rap music, they're commercials. How could you not know what a condom is?
If you're raised in a trap house, which unfortunately is seen a lot in my area, a lot of times people grow up and be adults. They don't finish high school 9 times out of 10, but they were literally neglected their whole lives, didn't even pass high school. Parents didn't care for them, so they ran off with Billy Joe Bob or whomever because they had a car. And you'd be surprised how ignorant some people are. And it's not necessarily their fault, but I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I am saying that, like, if someone comes in for an abortion and it's their 8th one, I think that as advocates, they should be concerned. This is their 8th one. Like, do they know about condoms? Do they have access to these things?
They know about condoms in Egypt. Let me say this in regards to what you said. And Space Coast Taco out there in the comments, we don't normally agree, but he's saying it sounds like voter ID laws. And I kind of got to concede with him because I want to be able to hold people accountable, but I don't want to be able to give them excuses that everybody clearly knows. You can't be this idiotic where you're an adult and say you can't find an ID, or you're an adult and say you don't know what a condom is.
They do exist. It's fair. But in regards to accountability, why are we to hold people accountable? Then why are you to hold people accountable? Do you understand what I mean? How is having the right to an abortion, my logic, and I'm not trying to tell you specifically, but my way of thinking is for them having access to this, how does it affect you and your family and your safety personally? You know what I mean?
It doesn't. A woman having an abortion doesn't affect them at all. No different than a man marrying a man doesn't affect them. But they have, like I keep saying, the religious portion of the right wing controls a large portion of that party. Evangelical base of the right wing party does have a lot of say-so in how that party goes. And both of those things, the LGBT community and this abortion debate we're talking about, is predominantly based in religion, because you're right. If your neighbor has an abortion, no, it does not affect you at all. You just don't like the idea that she's killing her kid. But no, it does not affect you. So I agree with that. But like I said, you have me on all of this with the exception of saying there's Americans that don't know what a condom is. That
Yes.
if you
And I'm
are
not
in
saying
that,
it's communities of people, but as an ER nurse, I literally have seen that. So when I approach like a discussion with a patient or a young lady about that, I try to keep that in mind when staying unbiased because I have run into two people specifically. And then a third one in regards to COVID vaccine. He came in a sickle cell crisis and he's homeless. And we asked everybody if they're vaccinated for COVID, and he told me no because he couldn't afford the flat fee. He doesn't have insurance. And I said, well, it's completely free. If you don't mind me asking, where did you hear that it costs money? I'd like to know. He said, well, I just overheard someone talking, saying that it was all a money scheme. So I figured you had to pay for it. And I can
well,
understand how that conversation was going around, but someone heard that who didn't even have a cell phone. And he is at high risk. He's sickle cell anemia. He was in a crisis and he did have COVID and it exacerbated it. So things like that, like I see, and I try to keep as an open mind as I can. But you would really be surprised at what people do not know about basic things like that. In my son's school, back in the day in fifth grade, the boys went to one room and the girls went to one room, and we had the talk. His school doesn't do it, and I don't know if it's because it's a private school, but there are several kids here in my area, in areas that I volunteer that don't have, they're neglected, so severely neglected that the parents aren't taking them to school. Truancy can't find them to hold them accountable, and they just end up living on their own or with God knows who at 12 years old.
well, if they ban abortion, you're going to have a lot more of those people. I will say this, and here's another issue in which why I say within a generation or two they're going to overturn. You were talking about healthcare and things like that, and not covering stuff. If you start forcing all of these children to come to term, and they're coming from mothers that are on the lower end of the socioeconomical scale, you're going to have to provide health care. You're going to have to start covering the births of all these. But most of these people can't afford this stuff. So that's why I believe strongly that within a generation or so that the Republican Party is going to be fighting to reverse this because it's going to kill the budget in a lot of areas that in regards to entitlements that you're trying to get rid of. You want this woman to have a kid and she's broke, so now you got to pay the birthing costs.
Or adopt this child, or start funding the adoption agencies, or better yet, start go protest at the adoption agencies. But that's here nor there. That's how it should play out, and it's going to bite them, and you know that they'll reverse it. But it's going to affect communities of people in ways that people don't even, on a big scale. It's going to cause a public health issue. It's already started when Planned Parenthood, when their funding was cut. These girls that don't know what condoms are, some of them only knew what they were because of Planned Parenthood was in their community and available for free. Now they're gone.
Well, let me ask you this because you're in the medical field and I'm obviously not. Mr. Reese 914 asks, doesn't it cost $100,000 to give birth in the USA? Do you know? Do you have any clue what it costs? I don't know anything about this, but
it depends on the situation. I had an emergency C-section, and I was in the hospital for 2 days before they delivered and 5 days after. My bill was almost $90,000. But it just depends on which state you're in. It depends on complications. It depends on a number of things. But if you have insurance or Medicaid, Medicare, you're going to get health care no matter what. Let's start there. But as far as the cost for it, it's not only that, it's cost for, do you know how much formula is?
Yeah.
WIC doesn't even cover
diapers
a
and
substantial
rice.
amount. Correct. And even if they did start adopting these babies, are they going to need help? Are they going to need financial help? And where are they going to get it?
Let me ask you this question. Because this is something that I believe started during the Bill Clinton administration under welfare to work. We had a lot of children that were on welfare, fathers walking off and leaving the children. So they, under the welfare to work program, this is when the really strong, some would argue draconian child support laws came into play because they were tired of so many bastard children being put on the taxpayers. So they really went gung-ho after dads. Under this case where they start reversing Roe v. Wade, if you start having a whole bunch of mothers from the lower end of the scale having babies irresponsibly and causing taxpayers to pay for it, what are the chances that they'll start using the same I guess, draconian child support laws against women. If you're going to have 8 kids, even though you can't abort them, you got 8 kids that are on the system needing welfare and things like that. If you have a 9th kid, we're going to put you in jail. What is the possibility of that happening?
Well, on that, the first thing I'll say is if she wanted to get an abortion but she didn't have access to it, she's going to get an abortion. I've seen it firsthand. Now, in the event that she doesn't, I've seen them take their own, themselves on the other side of the dirt. I've seen them just overdose on purpose or just try to stay inebriated the whole time, where they're not even really concerned about trying to get that. Now, I don't know if I guess that's all dependent, because when you pay child support, you don't have to show a proof, that it's going to the utilities or going to the car payment. But when you're paying child support for a pregnancy, that's not necessarily to house the child. It's housing the mother who is
Well,
pregnant
yeah,
with the child. But
if
there's
we,
medical expenses and things like that. And I don't know if it should be considered like kind of prepaying
yeah, but
or
I'm
go ahead
not
and start
talking about.
paying.
Let me correct you. I'm not talking about paying for the
Sorry.
birth of the child. I'm simply saying if you force a mom to have a child she didn't want, that child's going to need stuff once it's actually out of the womb and past the hospital, like diapers, wipes, and
Oh,
formula and things like that.
they should be paying child support on that regardless, period. If they're
And
not
that's what
together or what have you.
yeah, but what if you had a lot of these moms that are seeking abortion don't even know who the dads are? So, what do you do if the mom has popped out 2 or 3 kids? She's not responsible. She doesn't have a job, and she's got 2 or 3 kids, and no dad is in sight, and she's coming for welfare and assistance. Can you tell her no? Go get lost and let the kids start. I mean, what do you do? It's going to
Well,
be a
when she
lot
seeks
more.
welfare assistance, if they do give her assistance, it's not going to be child support. It's going to be like literally welfare assistance. Now, if she's needing it that bad, she's going to be figuring out, compiling a list to take them to go get that mouth swab. You know what I mean? My
Okay.
mom didn't even know who my dad was. I had to find out through ancestry DNA, but that's here nor there. But if it's a matter of her needing funding and being desperate for assistance, and the government, WIC's not cutting it, food stamps isn't cutting it, they would want to see that you've reached out to whomever. Like
Okay.
she would probably take it upon herself to do that. Now, if
Well,
she's not able
listen.
to find them, if they're incarcerated or on the other side of the dirt, then that's a different story, and that would affect how much assistance that she would get from the government.
Well, looking in the comments, both Jay Walker 75 said Jill, and I guess this is Fart Will Young is saying that she should be charged. So I do believe that if we force all of these babies to term, it's not going to be long before because even with the child support laws, let's just face it, even going after the dads for child support, oftentimes it's not enough money. If your dad works at Walmart, you can go at them for child support all you want. He doesn't make enough to properly take care of that child. You're going to still
Right.
need some entitlement. You're going to need
And
some
they're
entitlement.
supposed to prorate it based on income, even if that means taking pretty much all of his income. But they're going to, to prorate it, but still, they're going to get something because that's that much less that the government has to pay. And
Right.
that's why they charge so much for back child support. Because the government's thinking, we're trying to get you paid child support, so we didn't have to, and we still had to. So now you're paying double.
Fair
But I
enough.
do think that should be more, especially if it's a matter of a man not wanting, or a father that insisted that we didn't get an abortion, and their father's not in the picture, then it needs to be heavily, it should be mandated and required regardless. Me and my son's father, we have a really good dynamic. Everything's kind of outside of the court. I only got it on paper because when I left him in 2009, he was afraid I was going to take Christian from him, and I wanted to get joint custody, so it was always on paper, and he would never have to worry about that. I told them to cut his child support in half because I felt bad, even though I really couldn't afford it, but I knew he was going to pay me more, and he does. We just have a really good dynamic, but that's not always the case.
No, it's not.
Sometimes it does have to be set in stone, and a lot of these times when they're having to go get them for back child support, yeah, that's cool, they're getting their money back, but what about the money that the mother never got to begin with?
Right. Okay, well, fair enough. Well, listen, I want to move it on. I got one of them trying to get in here, but yeah, come on back anytime.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to follow you.
Absolutely. Oh, I appreciate that. I'm honored. Thank you.
Y'all take care.
Absolutely. Good talk. Good talk. Okay. with a name, I believe we may have talked once before in the past, but with a name like Trump Train, FUK Biden, I think it's going to be fairly
Dude,
obvious where we're going. But we got to let the man speak. It's a no snowflake zone. We don't run from any kind of comments. No snowflakes in here. What's up?
what's happening?
Nothing at all. You the man. Good evening.
I'm,
Good evening.
I'm, I'm just listening in tonight. Yeah, wow. Yeah, this is a very touchy subject. It seems to be on a lot of people's lives right now too.
It is. It is. This is. You got to keep in mind. Let me say this, and like I said, I make no. I understand your name, and you're absolutely welcome here. This is a MAGA crowd generally, but let me say this in regards to it being on everybody's mind. You do have to realize, even coming from the right, that us liberals were shaking in our boots, knowing that if all we had was to focus on getting Joe Biden back in there, the midterms were going to be a disaster for us. This particular subject right here, having Roe v. Wade being reversed, us being able to potentially leapfrog and say that maybe LGBT rights are going to get reversed, having folks on the far left even leapfrog even further and say maybe they're going to go after minorities. You do realize this does galvanize the left to some degree where it actually is a big fucking deal. You get that?
Oh yeah, I actually got the call the other day from my own child, and he's early 20 and said, Dad, so that was that. And I just said, here's my opinion on it, period. Is that I said ultimately is her decision, son. I said you have a voice, you have the right to state your mind and say what you think about it. But at the end, if you love this woman, then you support her in any decision she makes, and it's her ultimate decision. So with that said, I mean that's just kind of I can wrap it up. And then I did follow up with saying that I agree that adoption is a viable option for a lot of people, and that there are people out there willing to pay you to have a child for them that cannot have children. So I mean it's a very touchy subject, and I think it just really depends on the person, the circumstances, and like you say, I mean, everybody makes a mistake. Do I think that people should go and get multiple abortions? No, I think it should maybe one and done. After that, you have to buck up and be an adult.
With a name like Trump Train, FUK, but I did not expect this. I did not expect you to take this route. Wow. You definitely got me focused. I did not expect you to say that. That's amazing.
Now
Because
I
no
think I
one
surprise you every time I come on the live.
hey, you fucked me up with that. I appreciate. Wow, I did not expect that. That's. But I mean, but that's a very look. The polls show that 70% of Americans do support some form of a woman's right to choose. It's just a matter of generally it's first trimester. Certainly when it comes to rape and incest. So 70% means that yeah, there's probably some Republicans that are supporting it. So I guess you would be in that camp, but I was not expecting it because your name is such a strong name that you chose on here. You threw me off with that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, like I said, I just wanted to voice my opinion in the matter, and like I say, I wish anybody the best. I mean, if any of us had been aborted, we wouldn't be here talking now, would we? So, I mean, it's a very touchy subject.
It is. But yeah, I didn't expect you to come through and respect a woman's right to choose like that. But yeah, well, come on through anytime. You like I said, you caught me off guard with that one. I don't even know where to go. Wow, that was deep.
All right, Mr. Handsome, I'm gonna stay on and listen to what others got to say.
All right, you have a good night, man.
You too.
Yeah. Now, hey, Trump train. Fuck Mike. I did not expect that. Like I said, I didn't expect that. Ha ha, you left our pathetic, says Trump won and Joey lost. Well, if Trump won and Joey lost, what the hell is Trump doing down in Mar-a-Lago? But yeah, in regards to the abortion debate, the liberals did lose. I just don't see it any other way. One of the callers called in and said, what if we could galvanize the vote enough to get enough folks out that we could get, I guess, a majority, whereas you could overturn and actually impose a federal law. Perhaps, but I don't believe that's going to happen under President Biden. So the difference between pre-Roe abortion and now is equality and availability of medical care. Yeah. Not to mention the lack of it being a crime. So, I mean, yeah, it's way worse now. Can a woman insure a fetus in 6 weeks, get child support in 6 weeks, or halt deportation in 6 weeks? No, because she can't even prove it's the guy's kid. No, not your body. Leave woman alone. Make up with JoJo. Yeah, that's what a lot of women are saying. But at the end of the day, I do believe the right has won this battle. Whether you think it should be a woman's right to choose or not. And by the way, folks, tap the screen. You can send your boy off for 20,000. We right there at it. Tap your screen, give my likes up. We're right there. The law will make people desperate. I believe that is absolutely true, Anthony Smith. I absolutely, and just like you just heard the nurse, the medical professional that was on here, she said she's down in Alabama. So that's a very strong pro-life state. And she just said that she sees at least one person a month that is, I won't say a victim, but they performed a botched abortion. She used the phrase hangers. So I've always heard about that, but apparently it does happen. She says she's already seen one, and it's not outlawed yet. I looked at the map on ABC News this evening, and they showed the states that are almost certain to have abortion bans. And when you look at a town like New Orleans, if you live in the city of New Orleans and you want to have an abortion, the nearest state is probably going to be New Mexico or Illinois. It is that far away. Is it a complete ban? No. But with that type of a hurdle where a mom seeking an abortion has to travel 2, 3, 4 states away, I mean, literally, if you're in New Orleans, New Mexico is across the entire state of Texas. That is a long haul. So, no, it's not a complete abortion ban for you states' rights folks saying, no, it doesn't ban abortion. But, yeah, the hurdles are big enough that essentially that's going to happen. And certainly with Missouri trying to pass a law that makes the fetus at the point of conception a resident of the state. This is an actual law they're trying to pass in Missouri. So the fetus becomes a resident of that state, meaning that if you cross state lines and go somewhere else, you can be held accountable for what happens to that fetus because now you have injured a resident of that state. So if a woman crosses state lines and has an abortion, she can receive a warrant from the state of Missouri based on the fact that you deliberately harmed a Missouri citizen. That's an actual law they're trying to pass. So I get the states' rights idea. I get folks saying that it's not a complete abortion ban, but yeah, you can see with the amount of hurdles they're putting up that they're trying to make it as encompassing as they can. So it's a rabbit hole. This can go anywhere. You celebrate birthdays because you weren't aborted. User 657, yeah, that's true. So how can you make laws on a uninsured fetus? Unapologetically black men, they already do. If you get in a fight, like say you got a baby mama, you get in a fight and you kick her in the stomach, a lot of states already charge you with double murder if that baby and the woman dies. They already do it. So they already have laws like that. After 6 weeks, it's technically murder because it has a heartbeat and is a human regardless. Forest fire, if you could see what a 6-week-old fetus looked like, would you really call it a human? I get the heartbeat analogy. I get that. But does it have eyes? Does it have legs? Does it have feet and toes? Does it look like a human at 6 weeks? Maybe I'm wrong. I need to see what a 6-week fetus looked like. No one can afford gas for an abortion. That's actually pretty funny. But fortunately for Joe Biden, this leaked document is probably going to get a lot of the country to turn their focus away from gas prices. This is a benefit to the Democrats from that side. I said it before earlier in the broadcast. The Republican voters, conservatives, my favorite audience, my MAGA members, you guys are loving this because it is a huge victory. But the Republican politicians hoping to win in the midterms, they're not happy about this at all. This has made their campaigns for the midterms a lot harder because now you got a lot of women that are coming out, and certainly in the young crowd. Remember, voters under 30 don't tend to even show up at the polls. That's the voting bloc that has the lowest amount of turnout. But those are the fertile women. Those are the women that actually might have a problem with this. The Bernie Sanders type women. So we'll see, but I do believe this will create a hurdle. If you're a Republican that may have been in a swing state where you were likely to win, but you're only up a little bit in the polls, this is bad for you. This is real bad for you. The only strong Republican I can say that this is an absolute victory without a shadow of a doubt, Trump. Trump should be gloating off of this like crazy. He gave you 3 Supreme Court justices, and it ultimately resulted in what the evangelicals have been wanting for 50 fucking years. They banned or they overturned Roe v. Wade. Trump definitely deserves to take a victory lap off of this. And I'm not here to say I'm MAGA or any of that shit. You see my damn name. But Trump deserves a victory lap off of this, because without him and those 3 Supreme Court justices, this would not be happening. All right, folks, I got to wrap it up. 7 p.m. Central Time is when I'm generally on here. 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. I got to go. You guys have been awesome. It's been a really good topic. My guess is this will continue. This will certainly continue. This is not over. There's going to be ridiculous amounts of protests in Washington, and this will carry on. I'll catch you guys later. The Handsome Liberal. I'm out.